Get your hands off her! What the hell are you doing?
She attacked me first!
Willa, look at me. Can you breathe?
She needs to leave this house today. You have no idea who she really is.
If I ever catch you laying one more finger on her, I'll end this engagement myself.
What?
The day Bianca Marsh wrapped her hands around my throat, she thought she was ending my life. She never knew she was leading me straight to the greatest blessing God had ever prepared for me. The day Julian Cross pulled his fiancée's hands from my throat, that was the day my biggest secret stopped being mine alone. For 5 years, I told myself silence was the same thing as strength. I told myself if I just kept my head down and did my job, nobody would get hurt by what I was carrying. I watched that man every single day in his own home. I poured his coffee. I listened to him laugh with people who had no idea what I knew. And every day I told myself, not yet, just a little longer, just until my son is safe. I never wanted his money. I never wanted to be the reason his engagement fell apart. I only wanted enough time to save my son. But that afternoon on the kitchen floor, gasping for air, I understood something I had been running from for 5 years. Some secrets don't stay buried because you're strong enough to hide them. They stay buried only until the truth decides it's finished waiting. Why would a woman engaged to one of the country's youngest billionaires be so desperate to destroy a maid who had nothing? Why did Julian Cross, a man known across 2 industries for his composure, forget every ounce of it the moment he saw her on that floor? And what exactly was Willa Winters hiding that was worth risking her life to protect? Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. 5 years earlier, Julian Cross attended a private event at a Miami club. Willa Winters was working a double shift that night, carrying trays of champagne to men who barely looked at her twice. You're the only person in this room who hasn't tried to hand me a business card, Julian said, when he finally caught her alone near the hallway. I'm not here to network, sir, Willa said, not quite smiling. I'm here because my shift doesn't end for 3 more hours. That's the most honest thing anyone said to me all night. Give it time, Willa said. The night's not over. What's your name? Willa. Just Willa? Just Willa, she said. Some of us like to keep something for ourselves. I like that, Julian said. Most people spend the whole night trying to give me everything they have. I'm not most people, Willa said. He laughed, and for a moment neither of them said anything else that needed saying. Neither gave the other a last name. What happened after has stayed between them ever since. By morning, circumstances pulled them apart before either could ask the questions that mattered. Julian searched for weeks with only her first name. He never found her. Willa found out she was pregnant a month later. She sat across from her sister, Renee, at a kitchen table that had seen every hard conversation their family ever had. You don't even know his last name, Renee said carefully. Willa, how are you going to find a man who could be anybody? I'm not going to find him, Willa said. I've thought about it every day for a month, and I'm not going to spend my life chasing a stranger who might not even believe me if I did find him. So what are you going to do? I'm going to raise my son, Willa said. By myself, if that's what it takes. She named him Micah, and she built her whole world around keeping him safe. That world nearly collapsed when Micah turned 5. His heart isn't pumping the way it should, the doctor told her, sliding the scan across the desk. Without surgery, and soon, I can't promise you he'll see 6. How much are we talking about? More than most families see in 10 years. You're not seriously thinking about a live-in position, Renee said, when Willa told her about the mansion job. You'd be gone from him for weeks at a time. I'll be gone from him forever if I can't pay for that surgery, Willa said. I don't have another option left, Renee. Just tell me when I can start, she told the agency. Mama, are we going to be okay? Micah asked her that night, small and half asleep against her side. "We're going to be more than okay," Willa told him, smoothing his hair back. "I promise you that." She meant it the way only a mother running out of options can mean something, with everything she had left. What she didn't know yet was whose name was on the deed to that estate. She would find that out her very first morning on the job, standing in a kitchen doorway, looking directly into the face of the only man who had ever known her before Micah existed. Willa recognized Julian the moment she stepped into that mansion, before he ever looked at her twice. 5 years had changed her more than they had changed him. She decided within the first hour that she would say nothing. "You're new," Julian said the first week, studying her a beat too long over his coffee. "Have we met somewhere before?" "I don't believe so, sir," Willa answered, keeping her eyes down. "I have one of those faces." "Maybe," he said, not entirely convinced. "It's strange. I don't forget faces." "Then I suppose I'm the exception," Willa said, and left before he could ask anything else. What Julian did not know was that his engagement to Bianca Marsh had never been about love. It had been arranged by his stepmother, Eleanor Voss. "You worry too much," Eleanor told Bianca over tea, her voice never once rising. "Julian doesn't need to love you. He only needs to marry you. Everything after that is simply mathematics. And if he figures out what this really is," Bianca asked. "He won't," Eleanor said. "Men like Julian are only dangerous when they're paying attention to the right thing. Keep him distracted, and the company will be ours before he even knows it left his hands. And Preston? My son will get everything he was always owed," Eleanor said. "You'll get the ring. Try to remember which one of us is doing the other a favor." Bianca had disliked Willa from the beginning. "Why does he look at her like that?" Bianca snapped one evening, watching Julian thank Willa for refilling his glass. "Like what?" her assistant asked. "Like she's something worth looking at twice," Bianca said. "She's staff. He doesn't even look at me that carefully anymore." "Maybe it's nothing. It's never nothing," Bianca said. "I didn't spend 3 years getting into this family to lose it to someone who mops floors for a living." She hated it long before she had any real reason to fear it. That reason was still weeks away, waiting inside a hospital laboratory neither of them had any cause to think about yet. Julian collapsed during a board meeting and was rushed to the same hospital where Micah happened to be finishing pre-surgery testing that same afternoon. "Doctor, why is his sample flagging against a pediatric file?" a lab technician asked, staring at her screen. "It says impossible match." "Run it again," the supervising doctor said, "and seal it until we're certain. Nothing leaves this lab unconfirmed." A clerical error had crossed their blood samples in processing. The confidential DNA analysis it triggered confirmed something nobody in that building was prepared for, and the report was sealed before it ever reached Julian. It reached Bianca instead through a friend who worked inside that lab. "You need to see this," her friend whispered over the phone, "before anyone else does." Bianca read it twice, and her hands started shaking on the third. "This can't be real. The lab doesn't make mistakes on paternity flags," her friend said. "It's real.
This can't be real.
If Julian ever learned that boy was his son, everything Eleanor had built would collapse in a single conversation." From that afternoon forward, Willa Winters was no longer simply a maid Bianca disliked. She was the one person standing between Bianca and the life she believed she was owed. "You call this clean?" Bianca snapped one morning, hurling a folded towel across the laundry room floor at Willa's feet. "I've seen stray animals with more sense than you." "I'll fix it right away, ma'am," Willa said quietly, already kneeling to pick it up. "You'll fix it because that's the only thing you're good for," Bianca said. "Don't mistake his kindness for anything more than pity. The day he stops needing someone to feel sorry for, you're gone." "I've never asked him for anything," Willa said. "You don't have to ask," Bianca said, stepping closer. Women like you never ask. You just wait around long enough until men like him confuse guilt for feelings. It won't work on him, and it certainly won't work on me. Weeks of it followed. Destroyed belongings, invented mistakes, a paycheck quietly shorted, humiliation delivered in front of the other staff whenever Julian wasn't in the room. "How much more of this are you going to take?" one of the kitchen staff asked her quietly, after another shift of it. "As much as it takes," Willa said. "My son doesn't get a say in how patient I am." It was Julian who finally walked into the kitchen that afternoon and found Bianca's hands around Willa's throat, the very moment this story opened on. Knowing now what Bianca already knew and Julian didn't, that scene means something different the second time. "If I ever catch you laying one more finger on her," Julian had said, "I'll end this engagement myself." "You don't understand what you're threatening to throw away," Bianca had shot back, straightening her dress, her voice trembling with fury she wasn't ready to explain. "You have no idea what that woman is going to cost you." He had no idea yet how close to the truth those words already stood. Julian's suspicion did not disappear once Bianca apologized. Days later, returning home earlier than expected, he heard her voice through a half-closed door before he saw her. "I don't care what happens," she was saying, low and sharp into her phone. "He can never find out the truth. If Julian learns that boy is his son, everything is over.
Everything we planned
My life
falls
is
apart.
over. Everything we planned falls apart." Julian stood frozen in the hallway. "His son? Eleanor put me here for a reason," Bianca went on, pacing. "If this gets out before the wedding, there is no wedding, and there's no company either. Do you understand what I stand to lose? You should have told her to leave the day you found out," the voice on the other end said. "I tried," Bianca snapped. "She won't quit. I've cut her pay. I've humiliated her. I've thrown everything I have at her, and she just keeps showing up like none of it matters. That woman doesn't fight back. She just survives it. It's the most infuriating thing I've ever seen." He listened as she admitted, piece by piece, that she had never loved him, that Eleanor had placed her in his life years ago, that she had illegally accessed a sealed hospital report confirming Micah was his child. He said nothing. He didn't open the door. "Sir," his lead investigator said the next morning, sliding a folder across the desk, "everything checks out. The DNA report is authentic. The financial transfers between Eleanor Voss and 3 shell accounts connect directly to your family's trust. And Preston, named as the intended successor in a private memo, dated before your engagement was even announced." The investigator paused. "There's one more thing. The trust vote isn't scheduled for next month like you were told. Eleanor moved it up. It's in 9 days." Julian's jaw tightened. 9 days. "Are you certain you want to proceed quietly?" the investigator asked. "A man in your position could end this publicly within a day." "I don't want it ended within a day," Julian said. "I want it ended completely. Get me everything. Every account, every recording, every signature. 9 days is enough. When I walk into that boardroom, I want there to be nothing left for any of them to argue." He knew everything now. Who she was, what she'd carried alone, what had truly been happening under his own roof. What he still had to decide was how, and when, to make her tell him the truth herself. He found Willa alone that evening, folding laundry in the small room off the kitchen, and he closed the door behind him before he spoke. "Is Micah my son?"
Is Micah my son?
Willa's hands stopped moving. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't," Julian said, quieter now. "Please don't do that to me." "Not after everything else." For a long moment she said nothing at all, and then something in her simply gave out. She sank into the nearest chair and put her face in her hands,
Yes.
and the sound that
Yes,
came out of her
Lord.
was not composed or careful. It was the sound of 5 years finally breaking loose at once. "Yes," she said, sobbing. "Yes, he's yours. I recognized you the first day I walked into this house, and I said nothing because you already had a fiancé, and because if I lost this job, I lost the only chance I had of saving him. I wasn't trying to take anything from you. I was only trying to keep my son alive. Julian knelt in front of her, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he felt his own eyes fill. You should have told me, he said, his voice breaking. 5 years, Willa. 5 years I looked for you. I know, she wept. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me, he said, taking her hands. Not for this. Never for this. He paid for Micah's surgery within the week and stayed beside his hospital bed through every hour of the recovery. Are you my dad? Micah asked him one evening, studying his face with the blunt honesty only a 5-year-old can manage. Julian sat down slowly at the edge of the bed. Yes, he said, I am. And I'm sorry it took me so long to find you. Mom said you were looking for us. I was, Julian said. I just didn't know it was you I was looking for. Micah considered this with great seriousness. Does this mean I get a dog now? Julian laughed for the first time in what felt like years. We'll talk about the dog. Slowly, carefully, he and Willa found their way back to each other, this time with nothing hidden between them. They married quietly, privately, with no one in the Cross family aware it had happened at all. Bianca still believed she was engaged. Eleanor still believed her plan was intact. And the board was already preparing for the vote that was supposed to remove Julian for good. The emergency board meeting was called to strip Julian of his shares under the pretense of instability following his collapse. Eleanor arrived certain of victory. Bianca arrived believing her wedding was still weeks away. Neither of them expected the doors to open the way they did. Julian walked in holding Willa's hand. Micah walked
wife.
proudly beside them
This is my
both.
son.
This is my wife, Julian said calmly, in front of every shareholder in the room. This is my son, and today, the lies inside this family finally end. The room went silent. Bianca's face turned white. You can't do this, she said, her voice cracking. Everything I built. You built a lie, Julian said, and I have every recording, every report, and every transaction that proves it. Eleanor rose slowly, her composure barely bending. You think you've won something today, Julian. You've only made yourself easier to predict. No, Julian said. I've made myself impossible to fool twice. Bianca's fear finally cracked into fury. You will regret standing next to that woman, she spat at him, pointing at Willa. She was never going to be anything more than the help in this family, and neither will that boy. That boy, Julian said, is the reason this family still has an heir worth respecting, which is more than I can say for either of you. Eleanor's voice stayed cold, even as the room turned against her. I've buried women far more dangerous than her before breakfast, she said quietly. Enjoy this moment, dear. It won't last. But it did last. The board had already seen the evidence Julian's investigators compiled, the falsified reports, the conspiracy to seize his shares, the years of manipulation. Eleanor was removed from every position she held within the hour. Preston was stripped of the inheritance he had been promised his entire life. Bianca was escorted out of the building she had once expected to help run, her face still frozen in disbelief that a maid she'd spent months tormenting had somehow ended up the only person standing beside Julian Cross when it mattered. The house was quiet that night, in a way it hadn't been in years. Julian sat at the edge of Micah's bed, watching him sleep. Willa stood in the doorway, still in her work clothes out of habit. You don't have to keep standing in doorways, Julian said softly, without turning around. This is your home now. Old habits, Willa said, and for the first time in months, she almost laughed. He reached for her hand, and she came and sat beside him. "I keep thinking about all the mornings I served you coffee," she said quietly. "And you had no idea you were looking at the woman you'd spent 5 years trying to find." "I keep thinking about all the mornings I looked right at you," Julian answered, "and something in me knew anyway. I just didn't trust it yet." "Do you think they'll ever really understand what I went through to protect him?" Willa asked quietly. "They don't have to understand it," Julian said. "They just have to answer for it, and they already have." "And Micah?" she asked. "What happens to him now?" "He gets a father who isn't going anywhere," Julian said, "and a mother who never has to fold another towel in this house again unless she wants to." She rested her head against his shoulder, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything at all. It was Micah's soft breathing and the quiet of a house that finally belonged to the people who deserved it, and nothing else. She never chased his money. She only ever wanted to save her son. And in the end, she became the only woman in that family truly worthy of standing beside him. Would you have recognized her before he did? Let us know in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss what's coming next. We'll see you in the next one.